Hey there, this is Mr. Dan. Today I'm not gonna show my face. I guess I'm just gonna show what I'm looking at. Yeah. So again, beautiful morning in North Texas, North Dallas, Texas, actually. So quickly today, I want to chime in on. I've been thinking about something. Recently I've been teaching about painting clouds. A couple of my students are going through a process right now where I'm explaining to them what I see. Okay, I think design, art education, visual arts education has a lot to do with explaining how we see things. Not as much about just techniques and like what kind of brush do you use, what kind of brush strokes. Yes, of course we cover those, but I think for me at least, the underlying education, the underlying principle of it all is, how do we see things? How do we study things, examine things? How do we study? So how we see is more important than how we draw. That's my opinion. And so I want to chime in on that. Recently, I've been talking about how to my students about how to paint clouds, but really, what I'm trying to show them is something that I stumble upon. Me as an art educator, I'm always learning. And I stumble upon this observation that there is a lot of similarity between painting clouds, which is usually something that people think are like really fluffy and soft and almost like randomish, and some between clouds and ice cubes or snow cubes. There are actually some striking similarities that I think if we understand it, will help us understand how we light and color and shade everything. So I've been going through that with my students. Recently, I'm hoping that what I teach, makes sense to them and somehow helps change their perspective on observing the world around them. So the core of the message is, the core of what I was teaching is that a lot of times when we paint, sketch, draw things, we tend to look at things, especially things in nature, from a two-dimensional kind of a point of view. So imagine when you draw clouds, when most people draw clouds, they'll probably think of clouds as, we know it's a three-dimensional object, but the way we think of it and the way we approach it, draw it, is oftentimes two-dimensional, flat. So what we don't realize is that clouds, like anything, are three-dimensional objects. And because they are three-dimensional objects, they have different sides. They have at least three different ways, different tones of shade, if you will. If you imagine looking at a cube, usually when you look at a cube, you can only see three sides to it. The top, and then the bottom left and the bottom right, or something like that. Now, if you put a light source on top of that cube, and why are we talking about cube? Because cube is kind of the way we start to understand. We start to understand everything. Okay. there are usually 3 different shades to a cube. There's the lightest side, which I call side number 1. Then there is the mid-tone side, which is kind of not too bright, not too dark, and I call that side number 2. And then there's the dark side, the shaded side, which is side number 3. A cube has that. It turns out, to my observation, that most objects have at least 3 sides of shading. Now you could, that idea will probably be broken when you look at things like cubes. The spheres or round objects, where the sides are basically rounded off, and the shading dynamic is a little bit changed. It's a little bit different, but it's not that different. Okay, most objects in the world, most 3D objects in the world, you could think of them as having 3 sides of shades. There's a side number 1, side number 2, and side number 3. Number 1 being the brightest, the highlight side, and then number 3, the shaded side. Okay. As it turns out, clouds and anything fluffy like that also has 3 sides of shading. Okay. It's really helpful to think of painting anything, especially even something as seemingly as random as smoke and clouds and cotton candy and whatnot. I find it really helpful to think of them, to realize that there are actually the 3 side shading kind of a dynamic. It also exists in fluffy objects, in smoky objects as well. So that's what I want to share with you guys. And yeah, I'm trying to make a turn, waiting for a turn. Okay, so yeah, that's what I wanted to share, and I hope that this little thought gives you some food for thought when it comes to painting your own painting anything. But really, I hope it helps you see the world a little bit differently, a little bit different, and hopefully this makes you just a little bit smarter every day. Yeah, sorry, pun intended. I love Smarter Every Day, the channel by Destin Sandlin. If you're watching this, Mr. Sandlin, I would love to meet you and work with you someday. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about his channel. He's not paying me. I'm just a big fan of his. Smarter Every Day is a channel that I follow a lot, and he's an amazing guy, super smart. Calls himself a redneck, but yeah, well, if that's the case, he is a very smart. He is a very smart redneck at that. But yeah, so anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time. And until then, have a great day. Bye.